morning, everyone. Bill Holler and Tiffany Richardson and our special guest this morning, Cameron Nelson, with our session 8 around the startup series. Cameron Nelson is coming to us actually from South Carolina today, but he is one of the Small Business Development Center's chief digital advisors on websites, digital marketing, and e-commerce. Today's presentation is about websites from a real professional. I've actually sat in on a number of his sessions and learned just as part of the SBDC network. Cameron's background is he has 20 years of experience actually in the commercial sector as well as teaching people. He's been involved with a number of companies, both as a founder and as an owner in the digital marketing space. He has a master's degree and a master's of art, and he's funded and co-founded a number of companies and startup companies. I've actually had a conversation with him around things like NFTs and blockchain, so I know he participates in that area if that's of relevance to any of you. I think overall, what we get with Cameron is because of his managerial background and because of his background teaching this activity, you get sort of a combined management team person. He has worked and been CEO. He certainly has to understand the financial metrics that make a business go. And of course, he would have rankings as a chief technical advisor in many of the folks that he works with. He's assisting the SBDC and the Innovation Center and the Innovation Center here at Norfolk State with this startup series efforts. And with that, I introduce Cameron Nelson. And Cameron, the floor is yours.
Great. Thanks for the introduction. And hello, everybody. Welcome to Strategies to Start an Enterprise. In this session, we're going to be talking about websites. As Bill's mentioned, I've worked with between 80 and 100 small businesses in Virginia on building their websites through the SBDC. So I'm coming at this from quite a bit of relevant and recent experience in helping both the e-commerce and service-based businesses build a website that can help them perform and increase their online sales. Because at the end of the day, your business is going to rely on your website and your online strategy for its success more now than ever. I'm going to keep this presentation at a fairly high level, talking about different website building platforms and really focusing on the one that is most relevant to most of you, which is WordPress as the platform. And I'm going to talk about why later on. So I'm going to keep it at a fairly high level, just so we all have the same basic understanding. But I welcome your questions at the end. So please, if you think of questions, please note them down. We should have probably 30 or 40 minutes for your questions. So I hope you bring a lot of good questions. And also, I'm happy to meet with any of you one-on-one through the Virginia SBDC. This is a free counseling session to you. And my email address is here on the screen. And I believe this slide deck will also be sent to you after. So you'll have my email address. So I'm happy to meet with you one-on-one if we can't get to your questions today or they require more in-depth research. So with that, let's jump right into it. We have 4 goals for the presentation today. The first is we're going to discover what WordPress is as a platform and also compare it to 2 other platforms that are also very good alternatives for building your website on. And we're going to find out which of these platforms is right for you and your business, because it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Every online business has different needs. And so by looking at the different platforms, we're going to give you an understanding of which one is going to be best for you. Secondly, because we're focusing on WordPress today, we're going to show you how to find your WordPress theme and set up your WordPress theme. And third, how to customize your WordPress website. So first off, what is WordPress and why are we talking about it today? Well, as we know, websites in general are becoming more and more critical for the success of your online business. With the shift to online shopping and the pandemic, even if you're a brick and mortar store, you need a website to display your services, even if you're just listing a location or an about your company. But if you're selling online with e-commerce, a website's even more important, and getting it right is really critical to the success of your business. So what is WordPress? WordPress is a platform for building websites on. It actually started over 15 years ago, primarily as a way for people to create blogs, but it's evolved a lot since then. And it's now become the #1 website building platform in the world, and for good reason. Even Fortune 500 companies like Ford and some other really big websites have built their websites on WordPress, and you'd never know it. So it's just a good platform for both startups, small businesses, and very large businesses. So WordPress, because it has such flexibility, does require you to put in a little bit of time and effort to get to learn it. If you've ever built a website before, learning about WordPress shouldn't be much of a challenge, but if you're brand new to WordPress, it can be a little bit of a learning curve. So I like to tell people, plan on spending between 3 and 5 hours learning about WordPress. Coming to a presentation like this is a great step. There's also lots of other video resources and tutorials and guides, which I can help introduce you to teach you more about using WordPress. But there's a lot of advantages for using WordPress. One of them is that WordPress is widely supported. So what this means is that if you build your website on WordPress, you can be sure that it's going to work on any number of mobile devices, from iOS to Android, to laptops and desktops using Mac or Windows PCs, any browser out there. WordPress supports all of those platforms, so you don't need to worry about your website not displaying properly. Secondly, multiple users can contribute to a website built in WordPress because you can create different user logins for, let's say you have a graphic designer or someone helping you with your website, or you have an intern or an employee who's updating pages. They can have their own usernames and passwords that don't cost any money to set up. So it gives you good security and good control over who's editing your website. Third, you can use your own website host. So when we talk about a website host, we're talking about a computer or server somewhere in the world that's storing your website files and serving those up to your website visitors. Some of the biggest hosts are Google and GoDaddy, but there's many, many others. There's thousands to choose from. And almost every host in the world supports WordPress. So any host you want to use, WordPress should work on it. Next, plugins add functionality and enhancements. And one of the best advantages of WordPress is that it has a very robust set of plugins. Now, plugins are just little additions to a WordPress website. They're written by third-party developers and made available on this plugin store, which is kind of like the iOS store or the Android app store. Think of it that way. Many plugins are free and some cost money, but let's just say you want to add a video section to your website, or a contact form, or an full e-commerce shopping capability. There are plugins that support all of those and many more things that you might need to add. So plugins bring a lot of value to WordPress. Next, WordPress is built for search engine optimization, SEO. So SEO is what determines if your website comes up in a search result. So if it's Google or Yahoo or Bing or any other search engine, they're all running an algorithm that's identifying, the keywords somebody types in and the websites that they display. WordPress by default offers a pretty basic and solid foundation for SEO. And so that's taken care of for you. Now, SEO can get much more into the weeds and you can fine tune that a lot. But I like to say about 80% of SEO is going to be done for you with WordPress out of the box, and you can fine tune the other 20% over time. But that's a big advantage, is that SEO is handled for you to a large extent. Next is that WordPress offers many customizable themes. So you can think of a theme as a starting template for your website if you're building a new website. There's thousands of themes for WordPress, and a great advantage here is that you can find a very modern, professional-looking theme. Some are free, and some you can purchase for a small fee between $40 and $80. And the theme is going to give you a good jumping-off point to build your website on. Usually, all you have to do is customize the theme with your images and your text, and you can build your website very quickly and very cost-effectively. And last, many website hosts offer one-click installs of the WordPress platform. So it just basically means there's going to be a button on the website that you can click that if you want to run your website using WordPress, and it will install that for you. You don't need to be a developer to install and set up a WordPress website. Anybody can do it. Again, as long as you're willing to spend about 3 to 5 hours to learn about the platform, if this is your first time using it. Now, in addition to learning about WordPress, you're going to spend a little bit of time each month maintaining a WordPress website. And this is true with almost any website, really. But what you're going to be doing is fixing bugs or updating content, or maybe you found an error, something's been pointed out by a customer. It's just basic website maintenance. You can't build a website and launch it and plan on never spending time on updating it, because that is just going to lead to things breaking on the website and a poor customer experience. So plan on spending between 2 and 5 hours a month with your WordPress website. You'll mainly be doing things like installing updates, which I'll show you how to do, and solving bugs or performance issues, and adding content if you have products or you're just updating content, images and text. So if you don't have the ability or the inclination to learn about WordPress, and this sounds a bit overwhelming, then of course there's professional website developers who you can hire to do these things for you. You provide them the images and the text for your business, and they'll set up your WordPress website. However, I really think it's a good idea, if you're a business owner, to understand how to maintain your website yourself. In the long run, it's a really useful skill to have. You're going to save time and money if you can go in and make at least basic changes yourself. So I highly recommend you'll spend the time to do this yourself. So if you were looking for an alternative, there are several. Squarespace and Wix are two alternatives to WordPress, and we're going to talk about those next. They're not exactly right for every situation, and I think WordPress overall is a very good choice, but these are alternatives that should be considered if you're looking to build a new website and looking at your different platform options. So the first alternative to WordPress is this one. It's Squarespace. So this is Squarespace's homepage. As it shows, you can build a website to sell anything. You can start a free trial today. You can start building on this platform with no money down. So it's a simpler interface, and it offers flexibility for building an e-commerce shopping website if that's what you need. So it's a good alternative to WordPress. It takes less time to learn and also has less customizability with the websites you build on it. That's very similar to the next one, which is Wix. Wix might be the most simple, widely used website building platform out there right now. It's a real simple drag and drop interface. It allows you to create and design the website that you want. However, it does come with quite a few limitations for businesses, and we're going to talk about those. So keep in mind, Wix and Squarespace, if WordPress is too much to handle, then one of these could be a good option for you to go. So I want to look now at the differences and compare them so you get an idea of what you're getting into. Wix, I think, is best for basic websites and for real beginners who don't want to learn something complex. Squarespace is really good for things that require a lot of images and graphics, because the templates they offer kind of are focused on that. It also allows for online sales. Now, WordPress is really focused on businesses that want to grow and they want to add new features over time with a strong e-commerce and shopping cart capabilities, because WordPress, again, with the plugins, they really offer much more customizability as your business grows. So you're better able to keep a WordPress website for 3 to 5 years because it can grow with you. When it comes to pricing, Wix starts at free and goes up to around $50 a month. Squarespace ranges between $16 and $46, depending on the package. So if you want an e-commerce shopping cart, then you're going to be paying at the higher end of that monthly range. And WordPress ranges from between $4 and $9 a month. So when we talk about prices, and I get asked this a lot, how much does WordPress cost? Well, WordPress is a platform, and it's actually run by a nonprofit organization. So WordPress is free, but you pay for the hosting, like I said, with Google or GoDaddy or another host, and that's what you pay for, and that ranges between $4 and $9 a month. $9 a month is if you want to go with something like GoDaddy or Google, which are a bit more premium, and $4 a month with Bluehost or any number of less expensive hosts that offer a bit more of a basic kind of experience, but are usually just fine for businesses. So WordPress is going to be pretty cost effective. Ease of use, as I mentioned, kind of goes from Wix being the easiest to Squarespace, a bit more moderate learning curve, and WordPress. I really feel like WordPress can be learned by just about everybody. And I've trained business owners many times in WordPress. If you have a few hours to invest, you can learn it. So you don't need to be intimidated by the fact that it can be kind of difficult. It can be difficult is a good thing, because It offers a lot of range of upgradability and customizability to your website if you want to go down that route. When it comes to your design options, Wix offers around 500 templates or starting websites, so it's a pretty good selection. Squarespace only offers around 40. WordPress has the best selection of templates. And again, this is important because if you have, let's just say you have a bakery or a hair salon or an auto repair center, you can find a WordPress template that is already designed for that business in mind. So you can get a big jump start on both your design, your layout, and the user interface and the user experience. So this can save a lot of time in setting up a new website. So having more options here is definitely a plus for WordPress. Wix allows you to sell with products and services. So again, e-commerce is supported there. Squarespace offers that plus memberships. So if you want to have a monthly or annual membership as part of your business online, then Squarespace supports it. WordPress supports all of the above. Again, WordPress is pretty much unlimited with how you want to sell products, services. So you can build anything you want on WordPress. And lastly, customer service is really important because while if you're setting up a website for the first time, you have resources like myself who you can ask questions to. But if you need really direct 24/7 customer service, then Wix is going to offer you that with email and a phone and some FAQ articles. Squarespace throws in live chat, so that's a benefit. WordPress, because it is essentially free, and this platform is built by a nonprofit organization, they don't offer direct customer service. You know, they offer lots of guides and tutorials and forums where people are asking each other questions and getting help from the community. And then, of course, myself is I'm happy to help answer questions if I can with WordPress, especially. So these are your different support options. It is nice to have things like a phone number to call or a live chat with Wix and Squarespace, but WordPress doesn't offer that. So I want to talk now about the difference between WordPress.org and WordPress.com. I get asked this a lot, and honestly, I think it is quite confusing. I think WordPress did a bad job in explaining these two different versions, and so I'm going to answer the questions I get most commonly here. WordPress.org is the option that everybody here should be focused on, not WordPress.com. And that's because WordPress.org offers full theme support, whereas WordPress.com offers limited themes. So like in the last slide, there's more than 1,000 WordPress themes. That's only if you're on WordPress.org. WordPress.com really limits that to a much smaller selection. WordPress.org allows all the plugins that are on the plugin store, whereas WordPress.com doesn't allow for any plugins. WordPress.org, you pay the hosting fees that are between $4 and $9 a month. WordPress.com gives you free hosting up to 3 gigabytes of storage. So that is a benefit of WordPress.com, one of the few. WordPress.org gives you full e-commerce freedom. So again, you can have the unlimited ability to sell goods, services, subscriptions, or anything else you might want to sell. Where WordPress.com, you're gonna have to pay the $45 a month kind of premium plan to get an e-commerce on your website and a shopping cart. So that right there is very, very expensive. And most businesses need e-commerce. And so you don't want to pay for WordPress.com's very expensive implementation of that. WordPress.org gives you complete branding freedom, meaning you can make your website look and behave however you want. Whereas WordPress.com puts their logo and their branding on your website, and you have to pay extra to remove that. So it doesn't look as professional. WordPress.org gives you complete SEO control to fine tune, like I said, that last 20% or so of your SEO on your website. You can really improve that over time. But on WordPress.com, you just have very limited ability to do that. WordPress.org gives you full ability to look at and analyze your analytics using suites like Google Analytics or Facebook Pixel, whereas WordPress.com does not allow for those and it gives you very limited analytics to look at. And lastly, WordPress.org, you do the maintenance, so you update the plugins or fix little performance issues as they come up. Like I mentioned, you should plan on spending between 2 and 5 hours a month doing these types of activities. On WordPress.com, they essentially do the maintenance, they update plugins, they update things for security vulnerabilities. But you know, you can do that yourself with a click of a button on WordPress.org. So you are in charge of it there. So again, WordPress.org is what probably 95% of businesses should be using. WordPress.com only really applies if you're not looking to monetize your website, not looking to sell something. If you are, you have to pay with an expensive plan, and has a lot of negatives as well. So hopefully that clears it up. If you have any questions about the difference, then please let me know at the end of the presentation. So if you decided to go with WordPress.org, the first thing you're going to do is select your theme. There's several different places to get a WordPress theme, and these are the three that I recommend people look at first. The first one is the official WordPress website. Now, as you'll notice, this is wordpress.org/theme. So these are themes that are built by the developers of the platform. Overall, they're kind of very bare bones themes, minimalistic. They don't have a lot of features. They often don't have any e-commerce with these themes. So some people might find this sufficient, but most people will need to look at these other options. I really like the second one, themeforest.net. They have thousands of themes in lots of different categories. So pretty much any business category you can think of, you can search for a theme built for that and find it. I don't think I've searched for a business type yet that I haven't found a theme or multiple themes built for. So that's really cool. It especially helps if you're new to building a website and you don't know what layout you need, then this will really help. And these themes, there's some for free and some that you pay a small fee for here. And ColorLib is the same. It's a collection of themes from developers all around the world for WordPress, and you're going to find really updated, beautiful looking website themes on ColorLib. So these are your three best options to go to look at themes. And like I said, I recommend the second and the third as your best bet if you're running a business online. So once you've found your theme, you will install it, and I'll show you that in a moment. But what you're going to spend a lot of time looking at as the next step is this, which is your WordPress dashboard. Now, the WordPress dashboard is an interface that hasn't been updated much in the last few years, but it is, for better or for worse, what you're looking at and how you're interacting with your website as an administrator, how you're making changes, how you're changing your theme and changing your pages. So I'm going to tell you the important items you need to look out for here and how you use them. And then once I go through them here, I'm going to jump into a live demo website and actually do this in a live version so you can see these pages with more detail. So the important items here are the media, the pages, the appearance, the plugins, the users, and the settings. And it's important to keep in mind that you'll need to set up these properly before your website will be ready to be viewed. The other buttons here, the other links that I didn't mention, can generally just be ignored, and they're not commonly used for most websites. So the first one that's important to understand is the Media tab. And this is where you go to add images to your website. So any image that you want your website to have first needs to be uploaded here to Media. So I recommend that if you have a bunch of photos of products or of staff or of your location, to sort out the best ones and upload them here to the media section kind of before you start building your website. This will just help make that easier as you start updating images from the theme and customizing those to your own images if they're already here. The second tab that's very important is pages. You'll spend a lot of time here whenever you want to edit a page, edit the content, you're going to come here to do that. You can also add new pages and delete pages from here. And the options you have to edit a page will vary a bit from theme to theme. And I'll show you what I mean when we dive into the live demo part of this presentation. But just so you know, this is where you go to edit the content of your pages. The next section is under Appearance and Themes. This is an important part where you go to install a theme. So if you have found a great theme you love, it's on ThemeForest, maybe it's a $20 theme, so you bought it, you're going to download that as a zip file and you will install it here. It's actually very easy, and I'm going to walk you through that process in a few minutes. But the themes is where you go to manage and change your website theme. Next is the plugins section. So this is where you go to search for new plugins and also see what plugins are installed on the website. And here you see that there's two plugins that have a little yellow banner. This means that there's an update available. And it's very simple to update. You just click a button that says update now. It will take a few seconds and update the plugin. So updating is not a scary thing. And in general, should always be done when there's an update available. This is to ensure that your website has the best compatibility across devices and also security, because plugins are written by third-party developers, and as new security vulnerabilities are found in website code or operating system code, the developers are constantly updating plugins just to make sure that they're secure and they're compatible. So that's why it's always a good idea to keep these updated. The next section is user management, and this is just where you go to add new users and view the users that have access to your website. This is a really cool feature. It gives you good security and good control over your website. If you have a contractor who's helping you on the website for a while, you can create their own, give them their own username. It's free. When they're done working, you can delete it. And so you can keep tight control over your website. It's never a good idea to give out your original administrator username and password to anybody else, because it just gets complicated if you need to restrict their access later. So being able to manage your users here, see who can edit your WordPress website and change that whenever you want to, is a big benefit. And the last important page here is the general settings. Typically, these are set up for you by default from your host. So Google or GoDaddy will kind of populate these based on correct information. It's just a good idea to come in here and review and make sure that everything is in fact correct. And then when it is, you click the Save Changes button at the bottom left-hand corner. So that concludes the formal part of this presentation, but what I'm going to do now is jump over to a live demo website and actually show some of these things in action, because I think it's really important to see, to understand, and start learning about WordPress. So now what you should be seeing is a website for a business that I helped to set up just about a year ago. It's a food business, it's a restaurant. And you'll see here, it's a pretty simple website. And they have a logo, they have some text and some images. They have a menu, which is actually hosted on Grubhub. So this link goes externally to Grubhub. It's not an e-commerce website. And we have a little video at the bottom. So I'm going to show you how this website was made and how you edit it and how simple that is in WordPress. So you'll notice at the top of my screen, I have this menu. This only appears because I'm logged into the website as the administrator. Normal users won't see this. So if I hover over this and I click on Dashboard, it takes me to the dashboard that we were looking at in the slides. So the first thing I'm going to go to is the media section. So again, all of the images used on the website are going to be here. If you start with a theme, the theme's often going to pre-populate this media section with all of their template images, their default images. You can feel free to delete those as you replace them with your own on the website, or leave them. It doesn't really matter. It's very easy to add new images here. You just click the Add New button, and you can select your image files or drag them and drop them here from your computer. Now, the two most common types of image files for websites are JPEG, .jpg, and a PNG, .png format. Typically, around 90–95% of images online are JPEG format. It's been around forever. It's supported by every type of device, and that's probably what you're going to have. If you take pictures out of a smartphone or a DSLR camera, it's probably going to come in the JPEG format. Now, keep in mind that there is a maximum file size, and it's 32 megabytes on this website. Your own host can change that. It might be 20, it might be 100, but there is going to be a file size limit. So I want to take a moment to talk about image file sizes and why it's so important to understand the implications of file sizes. So even though it says there's a file size limit of an image of 32 megabytes, that's a really gigantic file for a website. It's so big, in fact, that it would certainly make your website load very slowly on most devices. And that not only decreases the user experience, but it also impacts your SEO, because the search engines like Google will look through websites and they'll look for slow loading times. And that's a big factor in your score. So if you have too many big images, you're going to have slow loading speeds for people, which just means they're going to tend to leave your website more quickly. and it's going to negatively impact your SEO. Now, in general, out of a smartphone, if you take a picture, you're probably going to end up with a file of 5 to 8 megabytes, which is far below 32, but it's also still way too big for a website. My recommendation is no image on your website should be over 1 megabyte. And in general, you should try to keep them all between 200 and 300 kilobytes. So if you do have images from a smartphone and they're in the 5 to 8 megabyte range, you can either compress them using software like Adobe Photoshop or Adobe Lightroom. But if you don't have those, don't worry, because you can also just Google free online image compression tool, and you'll find many websites that will allow you to upload your large image. They will compress it and make it much smaller without really impacting the image quality noticeably. And with that new smaller image, you can upload that here. So again, don't upload anything over 1 megabyte really ever. That's going to negatively impact SEO and user experience. Try to shrink your images to 200 to 300 kilobytes. And if you have any questions about images, feel free to let me know, and I'm happy to talk more about that. So the next section we're going to look at is pages. And pages is where you see, obviously, the pages of your website. Now, not all of these are even visible to the public. This one is in draft mode. It's a privacy policy page, which this business didn't need yet. So, it exists. You can edit it, but it's not on the online yet, which is fine. You might have lots of pages in draft mode. Now, keep in mind that all of these pages are optional on a website except for the home page. The home page is the only mandatory page. If you delete the home page, then your website won't be visible anymore. So that would be a big mistake. So never trash or delete the home page. But any of the others are optional, and some websites might only have one page, and that's completely fine. So if we want to edit a page, I'm going to click on Edit next to the home page button. And here we are looking at what's called a WYSIWYG editor, which means what you see is what you get. And in the editor here, if I make any changes, if I just type in a text box, I can change that text. And it's just that easy. So I can change any text I see by typing there. Similarly, with an image, I can click on any image. I can click Replace Image, and I can select an image from the media library that's already been uploaded here. So it's super easy to make changes on a website in WordPress. You can just do it through this editor interface here. When you're done, you can always you need to click the update button, which will make the changes visible online right away. Now, if you don't want to update those, or you decide you don't want to make the changes, or you just messed up, don't worry. You can just click the back arrow like I'm going to do now, and I'm going to say leave this site and not save these changes. Because I don't want to save changes. This is a live website, a live business website, so I'm not going to save those changes. So keep in mind, it's very easy. You just click Edit, and you'll jump into a WYSIWYG editor. Now, the interface of that editor might be slightly different than what I see here, and that's because some website themes are going to use a different looking editor, and they're all going to behave in about the same way. You just might have, instead of a bar on the right, you might have a bar on the left. And so you do need to spend a little bit of time learning about your editing interface. And it might be slightly different than this, but they all work in the same way, where you click in an area and you type, and it will change it right like that. So after you've edited your page or pages of your website the way you want, we're next going to talk about the Appearance tab and the themes. So here we see all of the installed themes on this website. They're installed, but as you see, only one can be active at a time, which is the active theme here called Canape. And that's the theme that this business owner chose to build their website on. If you have selected your own theme from themeforest.net or one of the other sites I mentioned, you can click the button that says Add New. By default, they're going to show you some of those WordPress.org themes, which I said they're pretty minimalistic and bare bones. They won't work necessarily for all businesses out there, but you can certainly look through these, and if you like any, you can click the Install button. But I'm assuming you have picked your theme from a third-party site, so you click the button Upload Theme, and just select the zip file that you downloaded from the other website. So all themes will come in a zip format. So it's really pretty easy. It'll upload it, install it, and then you'll be able to go to Pages and start customizing those pages like I showed you. The next section that's very important to understand how to navigate is plugins. So plugins shows all of the installed plugins on this website, which there looks to be about 5. And as you see, several have updates available. So this business owner should come in and click these update buttons on about a once a month basis. That's what I recommend, is getting these updated once a month. And that'll ensure that there's maximum compatibility and security on your website. But if you want to add a new plugin, you just click the button that says Add New. And this is the plugin store. This is, kind of like the App Store. You can think of it like that. They have featured, they have popular, they have recommended, etc. So if we want to search for a plugin of something we want to install, let's say we want to install an e-commerce plugin. We'll just search for e-commerce. And we're going to pull up all the e-commerce plugins in the WordPress plugin store. That's not really a store necessarily, because a lot of these are free. I should call it the plugin marketplace. That's a better word. As you can see, there are 1,036 plugins for e-commerce. So at this point, it can get a little overwhelming of which one to pick. And if you search for any kind of plugin, you'll have hundreds or maybe even 1,000. So the best thing to do is have a recommendation from another business owner or a friend or a developer who said, this is a good plugin for this need on WordPress. I recommend this one. And if you have a recommendation like that, I would suggest that you install that one and go with that one. But if you don't have a recommendation, then I would look at the plugin that has the most number of reviews and the highest star rating here. So with e-commerce, that happens to be WooCommerce, which is, from my experience, correct in the best e-commerce plugin. But you might find that, based on your needs, you would want to use a different plugin based on a recommendation. So again, if you don't have a recommendation, just look for the one with the highest number of reviews. Now, another piece of advice is when you're looking to install plugins, you shouldn't just browse these plugins, of which there are thousands, and pick the ones that sound kind of fun or interesting and click install, because installing plugins adds code to your website, which has to run and runs the plugins. And having too much code running can slow your website down. It can make it load very slowly or just be laggy. And you don't want that. So the better solution is to identify a business need on your website. And if the functionality is not already there with the theme that you're using, then find a plugin to add the functionality. That's the route you should take when selecting plugins. They should be solving a business need. The next section is the users. And this website only has one user. As you can see, the role here as the administrator. There will always be at least one administrator user, and that should be you. You can add a new user by just giving them a username, an email, and a password. You can also pick their role here. So if you want them to be an administrator, which I don't recommend you give freely, I think only you should be an administrator, but if you need a developer to come in, they might need that ability. If they're just editing content, they could be an editor or an author or a different level of user. So you can select that and create these free usernames up to around 100, and to give different people access to your website. And the last thing we're going to look at is the settings section. The general settings, these are really the foundational settings for your WordPress website. They underpin even whatever your theme has or the plugins you have. These settings are going to be the same no matter what those are. So you want to make sure your title is correct. That's what displays in the tab at the top of the screen. You have a tagline here. Make sure these are correct. You can make sure your time zone and things like that are correct. And generally they will be, but it's just good to double check. And then when you're done with that, you can click Save Changes and be done. And you generally don't need to come back in here and look at the general settings more than once. So that's just a quick summary, quick overview of the WordPress dashboard. And as we talked about some of the other options out there, WordPress isn't the right fit for you. So now I'd like to open it up to questions. I believe we're going to have some moderator, and we're going to moderate some questions you put in the chat. And I'd love to get through as many of them as I can. And we can also, if we don't have time, we can set up that one-on-one meeting. Like I said, I'm happy to meet with anybody on a one-on-one basis. So.